Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Olivia from 11D. Tonight, I and my fellow speakers are going to be walking around this little red carpet like Hollywood stars with less fame and more knowledge to share. As TEDx speakers, we're told to only walk around this little red carpet when speaking and not to step on the wooden floor outside the horizon of it. What's holding us back here from crossing the horizon of the carpet are the restraints of TEDx rules. But things like this happen to you and me every day. Every day we're experiencing restraints like this. Whenever we want to practice our freedom, there will always be some restraints that are holding us back. And in Russell's words, this is because we're all born free, yet we're everywhere in chains. So the topic I want to talk about today is how these restraints set our horizon for our freedom and how we can navigate and govern the horizon of freedom and restraints. Talking about freedom, there's a fundamental question that we all had to face first. Do we have freedom at all? Or to what extent do we actually have freedom? Last month, when I went to pick up the delivery at the school gate, I suddenly saw this rusty iron door was open next to the locker. Now the iron door originally was set up to make it easier for the delivery guy to go in and out, and it's always closed. But for some reason, it was suddenly open that day, and it seemed to stare straight at me. And when I stared back, I had a rush urge to go out of school, to go out in the streets, not to go home, to leave my bag behind, to leave my laptop behind, to leave my notes behind, and to not do any homework, to wander aimlessly on the street all day, to take the bus without destination, and maybe go back to school the next day, who knows. And that was certainly my freedom. In fact, the iron door was so symbolic, it reminds me of the tunnel in Shawshank Redemption. Open this door and I go out, and I have my freedom, that I don't have to be locked up in school and attend evening study hall. What a treat for an IB student. But I didn't, because I remember I have a 20% of EE drops due tomorrow, and so I stayed. Sounds familiar, right? And that's where I sadly realized that sometimes we're not free subjectively, that we do not own the true freedom. Because our freedom is affected by so many external factors, the upbringing, the social conditioning, the environment, and genetics, that we just do not have the complete ownership of our freedom. But luckily, there's still a silver lining that although we cannot own our freedom completely, we can still own the horizon of it. We can still make the decision of, am I going to step out the iron door or not? Am I going to step out the horizon or not? To step or not to step? That is the question. And to further explore this question properly, we have to know what's outside the horizon. What are the restraints? Now, the most obvious one is the restraints that you're clearly aware of, and is coming from an external factor that are even against your own willingness in many cases. For example, please raise your hand if you know QDHS takeaway policy. Okay. Yes, I saw many of us did. And yes, that we're not allowed to order takeaways at school, and this has been emphasized for many times. And so when we're making our dining considerations, the only thing we're thinking about is, am I going to the school canteen, or I'm just going to starve myself? Because the option of ordering takeaway is excluded from the options available. Now, let's raise your hand again if you genuinely love the school canteen and would like to go here for every meal every day. A few, yes, but I think we can all agree that it's totally reasonable to have the idea of ordering takeaway sometimes. But we do not apply this option to reality because we know that this is not inside QD students' freedom. However, we also know that there will always be some outlier wandering outside the horizon, ordering takeaways and enjoying them like a king, receiving corresponding punishment, like being withdrawn from the dormitory. So I think this triggers a bigger question: why do we share the same desire under the same restraints act differently? Why do some of us hate school canteen but still don't order takeaways? Why do we cross the horizon sometimes when we knew that it's such a serious and strong punishment? Is the desire too irresistible? I think we can jump to the conclusion here that sometimes what holds us here is not the external factors, but it's the principles we have in our minds. And I think one thing that amplifies this is the internet. People go wild on the internet. It serves the same function like a black mask to a thief. People hide behind it. Your serious and strict teacher may be retweeting millions of dad jokes on the internet because no one knows it. And because it deposits our identity and the appearance of restriction. But there's more thing that is also hiding behind it, and they're way less cute than dad jokes. They're responsibilities, moral, sensibilities, and the truth. And that can leave immeasurable and miserable impact on us and the community. I think many of us know Tangshan news in 2022. When the news came out last year, only 1 hour later, I had written an article using separating tone and sent it out. And it got 5K views, but I never dared to read it again. Because I know it was merely conducted by rational judgment, guilt-tripping tone, and emotional wording. But people love it. People love this one more than other ones with logical and sensibility and objective judgment. Now, could you imagine how many articles like this are spread and read on the internet, and how such serious impact it can leave us and on our community? I think here's to introduce a phrase that we all might know: let the bullets fly a little longer. It means that do not judge or comment on any event before the official investigation evidence came out. I think in this era, itself is true. It's true because usually after a burst of emotion accusing bastards in unjust events, you suddenly realize they're just exaggerating and playing the victim card. It's sad because things like this happen every day and people buy them. People lie, people get angry, and people fight, people are affected by the anomaly of the internet, where it seems to deposit all the reality and identity in the midst of human nature. Because that mist is so easy to get lost and get across the horizon in our heart and shoot the bullet to one another with an immeasurable impact. When there's a limit, people seem like to unleash their bestiality with impunity. So I think this again emphasizes the conclusion that sometimes what decides the horizon of restraints is not exactly by the external factor, but the principles we have in our own minds. Freedom, restraints, and horizon. These things are often ambiguous and determined by us. Now, just like when I look at a school iron gate and have a rush urge to go out, have you ever feel that you're hanging around the horizon and feel like you might cross the horizon the next second? When we don't have means to sustain ourselves inside of it, where should we set our freedom? I think it's essential to find means that aligns with our values and principles. And it's essential to experience this long-term process of self-awareness, critical thinking, and making decisions that is responsible. And it's hard because it can involve the temptation, to restricting the temptation, and to be aware of the consequences of your every action may cause. But as we move forward, let us strive to be mindful to the horizon we set for ourselves, and let us use our freedom wisely, thoughtfully, responsibly, when we are navigating the horizon between freedom and restraint. Thank you.